I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I am talking to the man who is behind an intriguing book, a book you won't want to put down. It is a true page turner. The name of the book is The Coffin Man, and it is written by Jerry Lane. Jerry Lane joins us right now on Spotlight. Jerry, thanks for being our guest here today.
Thank you, Logan.
My pleasure. Good to have you here, my friend. This is an intriguing book. It starts out with the story of a man named Knox Zonk, if I'm saying it correctly.
Correctly,
all the
yes,
names are kind of creative and interesting. So Knox is kind of an oddball in his life. He's kind of into himself. He carves a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the story of the Coffin Man.
Sure. As you have started out, Knox is one of those individuals. As a young, maybe around about 14 years of age, he had this physique as though Zeus had breathed into him. He was just that type. And he was very keen as far as his intellect and so forth. But while he was in his physical education class, his PE teacher noticed that he was the biggest of all the kids, but yet he would not participate in any of the activities. So he pulled him to the side. He said, "Hey, Zonks, have you ever thought about playing football?" He says, "What is that?" He says, "Well, it's a sport." He said, "You got everything that it takes to be successful in it." He says, "Why don't you allow me to talk to your mother? You think if I talk with her that she would allow me to you to come and play football?" He said, "Sure." Well, Mom was happy that somebody took an interest in him just to get him out of the house. And so what she did is that she said, "Okay, cool." So she let him come out. So because, as you stated, Logan, that he carved things, well, as far as his hand speed was concerned, he was just on the spot. That means he had everything. Of course, you know, the coach wanted him as a quarterback. Of course, his hand speed was on target. However, he began to test his foot speed. Well, that's what the work, because he had to work on his foot speed. So so as he worked with him, he put everything together. Well, just quickly here, because of that, Knox had Division I, Power 5 schools and colleges being a revolving door to his home because of the fact is that he was just that good when it came down to football. Well, because of his dark side, that carving parts, and particularly female parts, you know, it was taking him down a deep hole. But yet he has not discovered that yet. So in the process, he ended up choosing a college that had mortuary science major, a nice college. And of course, he played football. Well, on the field, he wowed the crowd. And of course, but in the classroom, he also blew everyone away because of his smarts, because of his creativity. He could make designs of cosmetic design that all of a sudden he had Fortune 500 company coming to the school, recruiting him. He had Hollywood coming. He had everybody coming in because they wanted what he had. He had that ability to make the worst of looks to come alive and be the best, the beauty of looks. He was just that good. Well, he was still raw when it came down to communicating. So being a raw kid, they assigned him this beautiful professor by the name of, as you know, Dr. Hannah. Well, Dr. Hannah was responsible. She made a few cards as he toured and everything, and she would tell him exactly what he needed to say and so forth in his interviews and everything. He was good. It just so happened that she was single, he was single, and they ended up having an affair. Well, introducing him to that aspect, that was something new for him. So it wasn't love. So as they began to work this thing together, try to, you know, and of course the school was benefiting, and of course he began to benefit. So he was able to land a job. Well, it just so happened that was a beautiful Italian girl that was there who also attended the school. And of course, it was love at first sight. Well, needless to say, he fell in love with her. He took her home, introduced her to his parents, his mom, and of course his family, and of course he went to all these hot spots that he would visit and so forth because he was just in love with her. Well, it just so happened that as they got back, of course, they ended up getting married. And of course, he was still playing football. So one day he decided to go ahead and go to a football practice. And as he goes to football practice, well, just so happened, Hannah was pregnant now. And Hannah secretly hired a private investigator, and she knew exactly where Jans was staying. So she visits his wife, and she says to her, and matter of fact, his wife knew her when he saw her, and she, introduced herself to her, and she says, so Knox told you about me. She said, yes. And then she said, well, let's cut through the chase. And she opened up herself and she revealed herself, said, did he tell you that I was pregnant? Well, that was a game changer. Yeah. So his wife's name was Roxy. It was her. She was really, traumatized in a sense. She was distraught. So all of a sudden she says, I don't want this conversation going to start right here. So she closed the door. And of course she went in. So when Knox came home, she was sort of, unlike anything before, she was shut down. She was cut off from him. And of course, anyway, this is a huge story. If I tell you the whole story right now.
Yeah, we want to sell the book, so we don't want to tell the whole story.
Yeah, we don't want to tell the whole story.
Exactly.
But that just give you a good introduction to it, to sort of give you a good flow of what it was really all about. It has these type of twists and turns, as you stated, Logan.
Yep.
But that dark side of him took him all the way down into a deep hole. And of course, the dark side, I will reveal it, is the fact is that he was necrophilia. So he enjoyed that, and I know that's when readers hear that, they see that, they automatically sort of brush back. But That's a huge population of people that really are classified in that in this way. Right. But at any rate, that is what got him into trouble and it caused him to have to go to prison. He went all the way down to the bottom in the dungeon. But because he's smart, because his creativity, he was able to take something that was just looked upon as being just waste. He couldn't do anything with it. Well, he ended up creating a special fuel with that. And of course, it became a big multi-million-dollar winner. And because of that, it's as though it paid for his freedom. And of course, he redeemed himself. And of course, he and his family came together. And of course, he and his family was together. And they lived life forever, I guess, unless we decide to do a sequel.
Exactly. Well, I think Knox could be the character in another book. It certainly is a fascinating character. I love the way you write. It flows. It's easy to read. Like I said, it's a real page turner. And your characters are very memorable. I mean, I get such a good visual image of Knox Zonk in this book. And I can just picture this huge guy who's got very odd tastes. Yes. And I think it's a memorable character. When you're writing about something like necrophilia, do the brakes go on a little bit, like, oh, maybe I can't go there? Because Stephen King says you should go there. What you think you shouldn't write about, you should write about. So tell me a little bit about the thought processes when it came to writing this book and covering what is largely uncharted territory in a lot of literature.
Logan, I had Stephen King in mind when I went there. I said, what would people think? They're looking at the fact is that, you're writing this, where's that, does that have something to do with you personal? Because that's the first thing that, people want to know, is it friction? Is it non-friction? Right. So they want to know what is going on in your life personally that you will allow this to write about this. But it's not the case. Basically what it is that, I remember the phrase, and I said, you know what? It just the fact is that it's a subject, and I think that this subject needs to be addressed. People need to know about this. People need to read about this. How else? Unless you make it available and make people aware of it, they'll never, really truly understand it. And that's one of the things I want to do. I want to be able to put it out there and put it out there in such a way that it had a lot of, Dr. Jekyll, Mrs. Hyde, you had a little, criminal activity going on and these kinds of things. And of course, but what happened though is that during this time, from December of this past year, 2021, the last week, all the way through the first week of February, I've written a total of 6 novels. Now, keep in mind, this one was the first one. So every day I would take and I would write something, and then I would go on a hike. I love venture trip. I love going out on the trail, doing waterfalls and mountain cycling and things of that nature. And really what happened is that as I would walk, that's how those different hooks and so forth would come into my mind as I was, venturing. And so that's how I did it. So it was just like I was just fed that, because of the fact is that I would empty myself when I would be on my power walking and things of that nature. And so I would come back and I would write about them. So I just felt that, again, it's part of that really, even though I'm disconnected from it, it has nothing to do with my personal life, but at the same time, it's one of those subjects that I thought, and I hope that, and I trust that, and I believe that I did a pretty fairly good job in making people look at it in a different sense.
Absolutely. You've absolutely accomplished that. Have you ever thought about making this book and the story of Knox Zonk into a movie? It's very visual. I think it could be, quite a compelling movie. What are your thoughts?
Well, also what I do is that I also write screenplays.
Okay.
And I have a total of 14 episodes of this, The Coffin Man.
Gotcha.
Now, how I vision it is that as I stated earlier, that I think that most people would sort of take that, back up, a little bit. But I thought about perhaps maybe presenting it almost like a adult, nighttime, like The Simpsons or something like that. Because I remembered at first, from where I was in my circle, when The Simpsons first came out, it was like, taboo, so to speak. But then we found out that all of a sudden this guy was speaking some truth, about things. So we began to look at it, and all of a sudden it became a hit. Well, right. I thought that, maybe this would probably be in the same type of, class, which, is speaking a lot of truth to power, so to speak. But I think that by presenting it in that sense, who knows what it can do. So like I said, I have a total of 14 episodes, and I'm looking forward to it. Yes,
that's wonderful. If you were going to cast some actors in it, who would you cast?
Well, that's a tough one. If you allow me to, I'm going to introduce something now, and I know that we are dealing with the Coffin Man, because most of the times, just to get a plug in, right now I am doing a Hollywood pitch with my other summer romance, which is Soldiers' Love Stories.
Okay.
And of course, with that one, of course, I already know that we definitely would like to go after Beyonce as the lead actress in that, because she can sing and she can act, and of course, all that. And so when I look at the Coffin Man, I also look at I'm looking at someone maybe that is, I think that Denzel Washington can make a good Coffin Man. I think he could really make that come alive. I really do think that, Denzel Washington. I also look at individuals playing his wife or Dr. I don't know. Now that one I have to think about a little bit more, but I just, that's where I'm at right now, with it. Yes.
Well, that's part of the fun of it. I mean, part of the fun of writing is the visualization, is the creativity, is creating this story in this world that knows no limits, that knows no boundaries. And, you went there in this book, and I think it works. I think it makes it, like I said, a page turner. You want to find out what Knox is all about. So
Yes.
You definitely succeeded. So
Thank
are you
you.
thinking about a sequel for this?
Yes. I have a total of 13 books that I have already published. And by the way, I have my own publishing company, Concerned LLC. But I have one that's coming, a book, a novel, well, a book that's coming out on the schedule for the first day of fall. And the title of that book is Why Not Me? Dealing with Social Issues. Well, why is that so important? Because I have written a total of 26 manuscripts. And part of those 26 deal with a sequel. And that's what I'm working on with, even with the Coffin Man. Yes.
Awesome.
Maybe dressed in a different way, but yes.
Absolutely. Well, Jerry Lane, you're a fascinating guy. I can tell you're busy. You've got a really creative mind. The name of your book is called The Coffin Man. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Kindle. You can download it. You can get a physical copy, whichever you prefer. It's a real page turner. The fall is coming up. You want something that's a little offbeat? This is your book. Jerry Lane, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight. Thank you again, Logan. Appreciate this opportunity. My pleasure. And to the viewers at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.